Hi guys, this is Mia from MIMODESIGN. Today I will show you how you can engrave glass using a diode laser. Sounds like fun? Stick around and watch this video. You can actually engrave glass with all types of diode lasers. If you're using a diode laser, you will have to cover the surface because the diode laser, the beam, will shoot directly through any reflective or transparent surfaces. There are a ton of ways which you can do this. Some people like to use a Sharpie pen. I find it a little hard to clean afterwards. You can use isopropyl alcohol, but sometimes it will leave a mark from the color of Sharpie that you're using. Other people swear to acrylic, and I'm only taking the black because I actually think that black is the color that works the best for engraving glass. What I like to do is to use tempera paint or poster paints. You can find these paints in any craft store. On Amazon, I'll drop a link below to some. This paint is really cheap and it is washable. So once you're finished engraving, you can just rinse it off in lukewarm or hot water. When you are coating this, it is important that you make an even coat. This is the result because I used a brush for this and you can see the strokes that I have. The optimal way to cover your glass is to use a sprayer of some sort. I personally engraved 400 wine glasses and we used a cheap paint gun from our local hardware store to cover them. But you can also place them manually. To show you, I will just be using a instant coffee glass. I removed the label and I made sure that the surface is clean and non-sticky. So you can decide where you want your engraving to go. I'll just take this side since it doesn't have any curves at all. So you can apply your paints however you wish. The important thing is that you give it a nice even coat. I'll just remove my lid so I don't get paint on this one. If you have the artist spray guns, that is really awesome for the job. I tried using, I'm not sure what you call these, vaporizer I think, but the problem is that it does spray a lot and it will leave a mess. I will actually do the brush method on this. I'll be using a foam brush. Even better, I actually think I'll just use a sponge. This is a magic eraser sponge. And I'll just add a little of my paint directly on the glass. You don't have to place it directly. Now I'll just dab it all over. So it is not even and you do see all those tiny bubbles, but that's okay because I am going to dry this and I will recoat it. I think I might go in and do around 2 or 3 coats. Let's see once this first coat is dry. But you will have the issue if you are using a brush right away because you will have these stripes. The cool thing about this tempera paint is that you can actually use a heat gun of some sort and you can dry it up really fast. If you don't have one of these, you could also just use a regular hair dryer. But my first coat is dry and you can see it because it's totally matte, and when I touch it, it doesn't come off. So I will go in and add one more layer, and again I'll just add my paint directly on the glass, and I'll use my sponge here to spread it out. When you are dabbing with a sponge or a brush or whatever you are using, you will probably experience that the sponge, the brush or whatever is picking up some of the paint on the first coat. That's why it is important that you get it all black and covered. Let's use my heat tool again. For my last coat, I am actually going to use a brush to make sure that everything is covered. Because if I keep using this, I will keep having these small bubbles texture from the sponge. Since I have a pretty large surface here, I'm actually going to use a regular painter's brush. But because I have the coats beneath, it shouldn't take off too much of the paint. These stripes will probably show when I am engraving because the distance in my paint is a little taller where the strokes are and a little closer in between. So that will have an effect when you are engraving. If you have a airbrush, I really do recommend that you use that instead. You could also use spray paint. I have tested spray paint. You can actually buy some marking spray, which is also rinsable or washable, but it is in the high end when it comes to price. So if you want your finished product to be profitable, you might stick with this type of paint, but that's totally up to you and everything will work fine. You could also use acrylic spray paint, but it is so hard to get off. So tempera paint is my go-to method when it comes to glass engraving. I will let this dry and we can head over to the laser. I will be engraving this glass on my new LP5, which is a dual laser between a diode and a fiber, so I will be using the diode. The wine bottle and also the wine glass was engraved with my LaserPecker 2. Also the 400 wine glasses I engraved with this, and I used the rotary to do it. If you want to engrave something that is round like these, you will need a rotary. But today I will show you how to engrave the glass, and at a later time I will show you how to engrave wine bottles and wine glasses using a rotary as soon as my rotary for the LaserPecker LP5 arrives. But first thing you want to do is to measure up how big of a logo you want. So this glass is, I think 5 centimeters will be pretty good. That's a little more than 2 inches, about 2.5 inches. I will be engraving my monogram over here. I'm working on a series of tutorials on how to engrave different projects, so I apologize for all the mess. But let's show you how to set it up. I am in my design space in LaserPecker, and this is my logo. If you want to know how I made this, I have another tutorial on this. I will go ahead and type in 50 millimeters, 5 centimeters, and if I choose a line up here, I can align its center. So now my logo is placed in the center. I want to have some settings that will be able to engrave this glass. I just have to connect my device. Just a second. there's my LaserPecker 5. I will mark my image here and I will go with custom, which it will automatically set to, because as you see, I don't have any options for glass. I do recommend that if you are engraving glass, you should see which color engraves the best. If you engrave too deep, you might risk that your engraving or your glass will chip a little. If you engrave with too little power, you might risk that it will not be very visible on the glass. What you want to aim for is this white color. And this is not chipped at all, and it's actually really smooth to touch. Another thing that you should be aware of when you are engraving glass is the type of glass you are engraving. So this one is pretty thick, so is my wine glass actually. I find that these wine glasses are perfect for engraving. It's actually the ones that I have standing here. I will drop names and links below if I can find them for this type of glass that I use. You can use any, but what's important is to make sure that you have a level surface and it doesn't curve too much, because the more it curves, the more difficult it will be for your laser to engrave the various heights of your glass, if that makes sense. This one, however, is flat, so I don't need the rotary and I can just engrave it. Also, if it doesn't turn out as great as I'm hoping for, it is only a glass, so I'll just have to drink some more coffee and I can try again. Also, I could test on all 4 sides of this. For settings, I have done a little testing, and I think I will set mine at around 60 power, and the depth I'll probably do around, let's try 55. This glass will be engraved with 60 power and 55% depth, which is 103 millimeter per second. I will have to raise my LaserPecker to find the folder. Let's take off the glass. It might be easier for you to see. Once you have your laser, you hit preview. You want these 2 red dots to meet. When they meet, your laser is in the right height. So mine is right here, and I am actually going to flip my glass over so it will engrave the right way, and I'll just position this square somewhere around the middle. I'll add my security glass, which snaps on directly, and I will hit start. My laser is now done. Let's take off the seals, and this is what it looks like. I just turned off the laser so you can hear a little better, but this is actually gorgeous. I did engrave a little too deep because I see that I have these clear spots around inside the engraving. So you probably want to engrave this type of glass with less power and speed. But let's try and rinse this off and see what we've got. I'm at my kitchen sink, and to rinse this off, warm water or hot water is easy, but so is the same type of sponge that I use to apply my paint. I'll let the water rinse and just rub this off. And this is real time, so you can see how easy it is to remove. I'll just give it a little more. So easy peasy, took seconds. I can see that I did engrave a little too hard on this one. Also, the surface is a little rough. So the settings I used, you don't want to use for this glass anyway. I think those settings would be great for my wine bottles. But it's really a matter of dialing in and finding your own golden settings when it comes to glass engraving. And as I said, it also very much depends on the type of glass you are engraving. So if you are engraving thin glass, you don't want to go too deep or with too much power and stuff like that. If you are engraving more rustic glass or cheap glass like this, you can increase your power and speed a little. But I really hope you learned something. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell. That way you will be notified when I have more tutorials coming up. And as I said, I will be making a tutorial on how to use a rotary to engrave wine glasses and wine bottles. So stick around if you want to watch those, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!